These are some stainless steel mandrel bends that I got from Summit Racing, and then a couple Supertrapp custom fit mufflers, universal fit mufflers. I'm going to start building a complete exhaust system for a Harley Shovelhead. So I started by taking one of these 180-degree U-bends to start making the rear part of the X pipe. So I got my mufflers spaced out, clamped down where I wanted them, and then just kept cutting and grinding the pipe until I got the fitment that I wanted at the right angle that I wanted. This is the front half of the X-pipe collector that I made out of one of those 180-degree U-bends. And I've cut it and got it all matched up and clamped in place so I can tack weld it together. This is the start of the rear header pipe. It's two pieces that I cut out of one of those mandrel bends. I put a couple tack welds on it. It's a holding fixture that I came up with, just a modified exhaust clamp. This is my first time using it, and it's already been very helpful. I don't know if you ever fought a piece of weirdly bent pipe like this to hold it in position. This seems to work out pretty good. Get the rear header pipe fabricated and all welded. I'm gonna cut a little bit off the legs of the front part of the collector, shorten up a little bit, and then I think I can start building the front header pipe from there. Started working on the front header pipe. So far it's just the one bend into this piece of pipe that has a 45 into it. I got it tacked into place and I'm happy with the fitment. So I'm going to finish this weld and then weld the flange up the top, or at least tack it in, and then check the fitment on that before I finish welding this to the pipe, and then move on to the next bend. I'm going to share a simple little trick that I've learned throughout building exhaust systems that's made my life a little bit easier. So if you need to cut a pipe to size, seems like the hardest thing for me is to get a perfectly square cut on the end with the equipment that I have. So what I found is I'll mark how much needs to come off of the pipe, and then just take a hose clamp. The wider the clamp, the better. Slide it on, and you snug it to the point where you can still turn it, but it's pretty tight. And kind of walk it back and forth a little bit, and that'll square it up on the pipe. So if you take your marker, I don't go all the way around because when you get up to this part, the clamp kind of lifts away from the pipe some. So after I make this initial mark, I'll let it sit for a second so that the marker can dry. And go ahead and rotate it. And finish making my mark. Let that sit for a minute so the marker can dry. Go ahead and loosen the clamp up. Slide it off, and I've got a nice line to cut or grind to that'll leave me with a nice square end. I got the front header pipe all fabricated and welded up. Having completed the front header pipe, I was able to mock up the mufflers and the rear part of the X pipe. So I can start cutting that to match the front part. So I tack welded this together and did a test fit on it, and the angle isn't quite right, so I'm gonna have to do some adjustments. I'm gonna cut these tacks on the back side of it and actually cut a little material off the front part of the X pipe to change the angle, bring this side together. Then I'll throw a couple new tack welds on there and test fit it again. And so I cut those tack welds on the back side, which allows me to bend it open a little bit so that I can get in there and sand some material off. I use a Sharpie just to make myself some reference lines so I can tell how much material I have removed. So I ground material out of here. So now I'm gonna bend it back and put a couple more tack welds on it, and then I can test fit it. And it's starting to bend it back, and I got a interference right here, so I'll have to grind a little bit of material there. It's time to start putting the mounting brackets on the mufflers. These came with the mufflers from Supertrapp, so I got a somewhat of a plan, make something to work here. Got the brackets all fabricated and welded onto the muffler bodies. pretty happy with that. Alright, I'm gonna start making the muffler support bracket. Got these 3 steel spacers made up, about 1 inch long, about 1 inch diameter, drilled to 3/8. Drilled 2 holes in this piece of steel that I'm going to use for basically a jig to space these, because these are going to be bolted on where the passenger peg bracket goes on, so that'll go back on over the top of this bracket. So basically it's going to be these 2 spacers like this, back to the spacer here, connected with some tubing. So I bolted these 2 spacers to this plate. And I'll cut a piece of tubing to go between the 2, cope it, and weld that in place. A little more progress on the bracket. Originally made a tack here and here, test fit it, and found out I needed to make some adjustments, so I had to cut this tack and bend it out a little bit. So I'm gonna have to try to re-tack it, re-test fit it, and then I'm gonna have to tack this piece onto this end and test fit that. After a whole bunch of test fittings, I got the angles right on the mounting. So I was able to weld this end on, and I made the brace for the bottom. So I just gotta weld that on, and this should be done.